going China International Imports Expo bear fruit. According to the Principal Secretary in charge of industries, that is Betty Maina, a good number of Chinese investors have already shown interest in importing Kenya's products in large volumes, a move that is likely to see an increase in production. Aki Sandera is in Shanghai, China, where the expo is currently underway, and she had a conversation with the PS on Kenya's future prospects in business with China.
Well, it's day 2 here at the China International Imports Expo, and currently we are at the stand for Kenya. Just take a look at some of the things that the country is showcasing at this inaugural China International Imports Expo that has been quipped to be one of the most important events of this year, especially for countries that are seeking to do business with China, as China now opens its doors to about 1.3 billion consumers to the world. So I will be having a conversation shortly with the PS Industries, Dr. Betty Maina, to just understand what this means for us as a country, and of course, so far, how many deals and how many contracts have been signed from when they began conversations with China. A number of things that have been showcased here include tea, flowers, coffee. They've picked top priority products that they are presenting to the world to export to. Remember, Kenya exports about 10 billion to China compared to what China exports to Kenya, which is about 390 billion. And these are the imbalances that President Uhuru Kenyatta has continued to reiterate that need to be addressed. So the Principal Secretary has been here from the beginning of the Expo. They have been parts of the negotiations and conversations surrounding how Kenya can position itself to do business with China and just ensure that we do not get a raw deal, as it seems. Thank you very much for joining us here on KTN News. We have just taken a quick look around. How did we decide which products to showcase today?
We picked the products that Kenya is very good at and that China consumes. Because when you're trading or when you're selling something to someone, you need to sell something that they can that they can consume. So we picked on products that we produce, we're very good at, and true, we also noted that these are some of the goods that China imports from the rest of the world. So the choice of products, nuts, tea, coffee, vegetables, other fresh produce, minerals, tourism, and all these are services that can be consumed by China. And China is a very important market for us. It's currently for the country, it's our largest trading partner. We import a lot from China. There's a lot of investment coming in from China. There's a lot of support coming in from China, but it is important that these investments in Kenya turns into products that can also be sold in the rest of the world, but also in China. So it was very strategic for Kenya to be here at this first China International Expo, because it is not just Kenya participating, many other countries are participating, which means there's a lot of competition for the Chinese market for countries from all over. You look around, there's South Africa there, there's Sri Lanka there, El Salvador, Dominican Republic, where is this, Canada, Great Britain. All the rest, the whole world is looking to sell to China. So it was critical for Kenya to also be present, because it is the market to be at.
Being day 2 of the summit, but of course we know leaders have been having negotiations and conversations with a number of business partners in terms of the kind of contracts or deals that have been signed. Talk to us about that so far.
All right, we are putting everything together, but we have concluded both investment deals, looking to Chinese companies that can come into Kenya, produce to sell into China because they understand their products very well. But we've also concluded arrangements and deals from Kenyan firms to sell to Chinese buyers. 2 days ago, I witnessed the signing of a deal for fresh produce export, guys who can take in our avocados, take in our nuts, and take in a lot of our other beans and other products. So as we proceed we are looking to make sure we can conclude these deals. Yesterday, I witnessed another deal where we signed up with a company to import coffee from Kenya. First of all, to support in production, because the Chinese market of 1.4 billion people compared to Kenya of 50 million, they need lots. I mean, when we talk about the quantities they are asking for, is a lot. I've just met somebody here asking me for 20 containers of purple tea. So we need to really boost our production. So we're signing agreements to boost production in Kenya, but also for buyers, with buyers here in China.
How much money are we likely to get as a country from the deals and the agreements that Kenya has settled for so far? Right
now, it is actually hard to quantify, but we're looking at, when we look at the imports from Kenya to China, it would be very, very critical and very encouraging for us if we can double our exports within the next year and begin to quadruple that, because really we have the potential and China is willing to buy. But once we understand what they're buying, what we understand how they consume and begin to fashion our products. There's a lot of tea here, which is like oolong tea, which is what they like. And we're now starting to produce that in Kenya. I think we'll show you once we into the stands. We actually have Chinese companies producing the loose oolong tea that China likes, and it can be produced in Kenya. So this is both understanding the market, but at the same time, identifying the purchasers of Kenya's goods here.
We've also seen deals in terms of manufacturing. We know a silk farm is set to be set up in Kenya. Yeah. Do we have any other deals towards the industrial and manufacturing end?
Yeah. So you heard about the silk farm. We've had a large shoe, one of the largest shoe manufacturers in Kenya, in China. We're setting up in Kenya as well over the next 6 months. We've had a company that also is going to participate in fish farming. So they're setting up a production unit for feedlings, for feed. We're looking for somebody to set up, a fish feed farm. In that company is already was in Nairobi just last week, and they'll be back at the end of the month to conclude that investment. We have additional, to conclude that investment, we have spoken to a solar panel manufacturer who is actually setting up at the special economic zone in Eldoret. We have concluded conversations with a pharmaceutical firm who is also coming to produce from Kenya. So there's some who have concluded deals. And by the end of this week, I'll be able to quantify and give you the total number, because we're still in conversations. And there's some, so there's some who've concluded deals, but there's some who have already set up. Yeah.
So far, since when this expo started, I mean, from the businesses or companies here in China, what do they seem to be most interested in from what we are offering?
What we offer, at least at the expo, at this stand, people are interested in our team. I've mentioned that we already have an order or somebody looking for a supply of purple tea. That's very important. We already have a person looking for avocados, and we're already starting to supply that. We already have some additional demand for our black tea as well. So that's a lot of our teas. I also mentioned to you that yesterday we signed an agreement with somebody who's looking to buy our coffee and to prepare it for this market. We have demand for minerals. We have demand for nuts, macadamia particularly. We have demand for flowers. Fortunately, we can already sell this. So a lot of the products that are produced in Kenya, we have seen demand. You saw somebody talking to me a few minutes ago. We have also demand for tourism, people who are wanting to understand a lot more about the Kenyan market and to be able to organize visits. So what we are looking at here and what we're seeing is there is demand for Kenya's products.
Now that we are likely to produce more because of the market we are tapping into and the numbers that are involved? You have mentioned agreements on support in terms of production, but what else are we, what other measures are we putting in place to ensure that that doesn't slow us down, that we suddenly have a surge of orders and we can manage it?
One of the things as government we're doing is focusing on facilitating trade, and that is through negotiation of market access agreements. That is critical. So for instance, with agricultural produce, we are looking at concluding a framework for what you call SPS, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, which really is a framework for facilitating trade in plant produce or fresh produce, the flowers, the fruits, the vegetables. Those sort of agreements facilitate market access. In addition, the Chinese government has also indicated that it will give Kenya preferential market access, and therefore some tariffs, that taxes that are still levied on Kenya's products. The framework for discussion on how those ones shall be eliminated completely has also begun. So those vehicles, the vehicles of SPS and SPS measures, or dealing with SPS measures, the framework for tariff elimination is going to open up markets, because that way you become more competitive. If you don't have to pay the 40% on avocado, then you can bring it in. If you don't have to pay the 10% on flowers, then you can bring it in.
Well, we've had various meetings. You know that this whole effort has been to increase Kenyan exports into the Chinese market. And what they've done is actually they're opening the door for us. So how it's going to increase investment in Kenya, we have met with various Chinese companies who want to join venture with local people to make the production in Kenya for export. And this especially on the big four. We have various people in medical industry. We met a shoe manufacturer who wants to come and manufacture in Kenya for export. And the Chinese are opening a fantastic market of 1.4 billion for us. If you compare that we only have around 50 million people, it's really a fantastic opportunity for Kenya. I think the president's presence here has been a very strong boost for the Chinese companies. And then we've had quite a few high-level meetings with the people who want to come open up shop there for export into Africa and into China. So at Kenya Investment Authority, really our assurance to them is that when they come, we can help them with getting their work permits, getting their businesses set up, introduce them to various people who would like to partner with them. And really it's to facilitate for them. That's the job of our agency, to facilitate for them so that making their investment is easier. Yeah.
Then Kenya is about number 61 in terms of ease of doing business. But when
it's a big leap.
Yeah, it's a big leap, about
75
75 positions. But then there's that talk on cost of doing business in the country. Is it something that might impede getting more investment?
I think we're also dealing with the issue of the cost. I mean, one of the things that the government has dealt with, of course, is power. And they've said that the power costs are going to go down. And I also feel that, if you do volumes, you get economies of scale. So really what we're trying to do is to leapfrog, instead of like growing step by step, where you can grow in volume so that you reduce the cost per unit. And then it becomes much more effective. And I really, the reception here has been fantastic, really fantastic. We've had so many Chinese companies that are really keen now to come and set up and joint venture, and they've opened the door to us for various products. We had one company who was talking to us about avocado. And when they're talking about tea, they say like 50 containers there's nothing small scale. So I think really it's a fantastic opportunity for Kenyan manufacturers. And we've increased, I'm very proud of the Kenyan stand. There's been a leapfrog in terms of quality. And the products, the number of products on the stand have also increased substantially. So I think Kenya is also upped its game on what it has to offer on the international market.